Hey, team players, and welcome back. Today is going to be an absolutely awesome day. So many things. First off, we're going to win tonight. We're going to lose. Team building, trades, waivers. We are here to make your team as elite as possible. We are the champion makers. That's what we do here at Local Football Flavor. So many things to break down from this week. Who to buy into, who to avoid. Let's do this. Indeedy. So, Bob, welcome to the party. I wasn't able to be here last week for your breakdowns, and gotta tell you, I like the show. Some things I disagreed with, but we're here to make some awesomeness, and so too is Andre. So, yeah, I saw Bucky's. I did not see that Bucky was getting an MRI, but I did see that he's been going amazing. So, we'll have to keep on top of that.
Yeah, it says here that he's dealing with. He only missed a couple plays before returning to action. After the game, nothing was noticeably bothering him. However, the situation became more concerning on Monday when Todd Bowles revealed that he was undergoing an MRI. So we'll have to take a look at that because I do have an obscenely high in my redraft leagues stake in Bucky, almost 100%.
As you should.
So I'm very curious. I would say, though, that like Monday, we have seen players go in for things, and we have seen players, come out okay for some conditions.
Yeah, getting the MRI has become more popular than it ever has before.
Well, it says that, usually you don't get them unless there's going to be a multi-week absence. So I am curious to see what will result from that, Andre. Thanks for putting that to my attention because I've been at work all day, and that seems to have come up just like about 30 or so minutes ago. It says
but my gut reaction is I'm not a fan, but until I see that the world is over, I'm riding that Bucky train. I am all in there, and that part ain't going to change. As a programming note, guys, we appreciate everyone who does the quick hitters and deep dives. You guys were doing that.
What's up, Maddie? How's it going, man?
Remember, start it with the QH or the DD. I'm only going to be able to be here till 5 p.m. just as an upright starter to you all. So we need to shoot these out fast and hot.
So, Sam, it's good to see you, man. So here's the thing that I understand from your team. Both JMO and Chuba do have some general concerns for me in terms of usage. I'll because there's only a couple questions in the chat. I'll just touch on this a little bit more. So JMO's usage is basically tied to targets here. Okay. So he's on the field almost every play that they're running. Okay. So that's a good thing. But the problem is that he is not one of those guys. And this week he got 7 targets. Last week he got 2. He's not one of those guys that is going to be hyper targeted unless one of these other wide receivers get hurt. Now, what I will say is that Amon-Ra is one of those players that can get hurt, has an injury past.
Yeah, but he's not. JMO is not the 1-for-1 replacement for him.
Exactly. But what I will say is that I do think that JMO is very explosive. Now, and I do like JMO. Now, as it goes for Chuba, the thing you have to think about for Chuba is just the Panthers in general. Chuba's a very good player. And Chuba's usage is not super high right now. He's only seeing the field around like 50-ish% of the time. And it's not really affecting his production at this point in time.
No, he's still their league carrier. It's just they're always bad situations.
But he's in negative game script more often than you would want. The first 2 weeks of the season, he was around 16 half PPR points. The last 2 weeks, he's around 8 PPR points. I don't necessarily see either of these two players being very different from one another in terms of their weekly boom or bust upside potential. But if you need a wide receiver, I probably wouldn't be trading Chuba into JMO. But I don't really see the difference in a boomer bust way on either of these players because their upside on a weekly basis is right around that 16 to 25 point upside. If you need the wide receiver, I would consider it, but I would also consider trading guys like Tony Pollard right now and guys like Alvin Kamara instead of Chuba, because we see an immediate reduction in snaps for Kamara with the usage of Kendre Miller this week. And we saw that Pollard is going to be playing from behind a lot. Until Carolina can get it, or until Tennessee can get it together, they're going to be playing from behind a lot. And while his usage is 100% right now, it's not proving to lead to many touchdowns. So I would try.
And it's exactly it here. Trey is coming back, or Tajay is coming back. That's exactly right. So, Bob, you're exactly with where I was thinking there. Pollard is the one I'd rather move. And we told you in the preseason, if you got Kamara, you got to get ready to get rid of him at the end of week 4. And here we are. So I think that you're probably better off, Sam, to go down the direction Bob is to do Kamara and Pollard together and try to do a 2-for-1. You're not going to get significantly better than JMO, but you should be able to get above him.
Yeah. And the thing is,
QJ, but that's where I would try.
And the thing is, right now, Kamara's floor is bolstered up by that receiving upside that he has. He got 5 targets this week. A couple weeks ago, he didn't get anything. So you really have to think about, like, where is your value there? Benson didn't have a great game. Will that happen? Mason didn't have a great game this week either. Will another good week happen? These are all players that I would think about moving into JMO. If I was trading Chuba, I might want to pair Chuba and one of those other running backs to get a better wide receiver than JMO. If I'm being honest with you, I think you could pivot and take 2 of those players and get into something a little bit better. So let's keep going here. So we can talk about it if you like it. Steve, looking like I'm going to be 4-0 going into week 5. Allen H.M., Buckyworthy, Pickens, Pitts, and I started Dobbs in a flex over Pollard. I really like that you did that, Steve. And
me too.
Dobbs is there with 3 touchdowns, which is insane.
So your opponent has Cortland Sutton from Denver and Breece Hall from the Jets, and you have A-Chain from Miami, and you have 48 in your pocket.
I think you win.
You win. This is even at standard PPR. I think you win pretty easily. I think that A-Chain and Hall are basically going to be a push, and there's no way in hell Denver's giving Sutton 48 points.
Yeah, so I think you win it's more likely a push. Yeah. I think the running backs are. I think your HN will equalize either Sutton or Hall, but I don't think either Sutton or Hall will get more than 25 points. So I think that you do clear that, Steve. Down by 16.3 TS here. I have Fields and HN, and I think they get 17 combined. Yeah, I think they really fly past that 17 mark. Right now, Fields is projecting for about 18.
Do that by himself. Bob, why do we keep doing this? We got internet lags going on. But
Fields is projecting around
the Jets going to do that by himself.
Yeah. Fields is projecting around 18, and HN is projecting around 17. So I think you easily clear that. Alejandro, I picked up Marks and Havoc Buka. Love that you did that. JSN, MHJ, hoping to send him and MHJ for a better wide receiver. If it has to be Markson and Buka, is Lamb, Nico, Chase, or Jefferson all right? If I was wanting to get into any of those wide receivers right now, it would probably be Justin Jefferson. I know that Joe and I really do really love Nico, and Nico has a really safe floor. But I do think that the totality of, and I know a couple of the injuries happened for the Vikings this week over in Dublin. So keep your eye on that. But the guy I think that I'd be targeting out of those guys is Jefferson if I'm giving up both Igbuka and Marks. But to be brutally honest with you, Alejandro, and I think I said this to you last week, I really don't want to trade Igbuka. He's proven.
No, you don't.
He's proven that over the last 4 weeks, he's done exactly what we've wanted him to do. And he's gotten more targets as the weeks have gone on. He got 10 targets this week, same as Chris Godwin. He is being trusted by Baker Mayfield. He got a 77-yard touchdown this week, which proves that he has that explosive upside. While he isn't the safest floor in the world because there are a lot of those wide receivers on the team, I do think that Igbuka's numbers over a span of time could eventually equal out to a guy like Nico right now, given his situation and the unhealthy offensive line and the play that Houston is having. As it goes to Jefferson gives you that 30 kind of point upside potentially on a weekly basis. Addison got a few good plays from Carson Wentz this week. When will JJ McCarthy come back? Lamb is hurt. I don't really want Chase either. We'll see what happens to Chase tonight.
Bob and I are going to give you different answers here, Alejandro.
But I'm not. Added to that, Joe, Marks is proving that he potentially might take over the RB1 role in Houston. So you will have you're trading an RB1 and a wide receiver one right now for one of these four guys that right now isn't doing enough to make me want to trade all of that.
Yeah,
I think that's where I'm at.
I agree with Bob that that you definitely should not be moving Mbuka. I'm actually on a different camp. I would strongly consider moving Marvin Harrison, the receiver from Arizona, for the injured CeeDee Lamb from Dallas for two main reasons. The first is that the owner of Lamb is going to be sitting. You want to send Harrison? I got it. I want you to send Harrison too. So the owner of Lamb is going to be getting a little nervous about the injury. And quite frankly, having an injured CeeDee Lamb and having Marvin Harrison Jr. might not really be that much of a difference right now. So if I can get
Marvin, he had a good game this past week.
I get that. But Dak isn't hurt, and you can buy him now because of the injury. I want to do that because the Dallas Cowboys have made it incredibly clear they can't stop anybody. I get it. Green Bay is a good offense, and they put up a lot of points. Mm-hmm. The Giants put up a ton of points against this Cowboys team. Dak is going to be throwing for his life, and we know CeeDee Lamb is a dude and a half when that happens. So, Alejandro, what I would try to do just straight up Harrison for Lamb and then be ready to put Marks in. That way, I think it gives you a good balance of assuming the injury risk as well as putting yourself in a vastly better spot. But if you were in a win right now, this second mode, it's Jefferson. But of that collection, given all the variability and the risk, Lamb's the direction I would want to go.
And so Bob, and I mean, and that's fine too. But also, I don't think that I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to assume CeeDee Lamb right now with your core of wide receiver like Igbuka, JSN, and MA. Who would you be? My question is, Alejandro, who is your other wide receivers there that if you were starting
Igbuka and JSN, that can get you through some weeks?
No, but I'm saying who's your third wide receiver? That's who I want to know before we take that Lamb. Before we take that Lamb right there, Juwan Johnson a drop. Taysom Hill coming back. I don't think he's a drop.
I think he looked like that hit was hurting him. Like he didn't quite look the same after he had that backwards fall on his ankle thingy he did.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think he's a drop for a one-to-one drop for Taysom Hill directly, but there are some interesting tight end opportunities that probably will be on the waiver wire this week, and you might want to consider those as well. But I think we'll play the wait and see approach with Juwan Johnson, and I'd put in a waiver claim for a tight end if I'm worried about him, but I wouldn't.
Taysom Hill ain't the one.
Yeah, I wouldn't drop him. So Nino, might sound crazy. Hear me out. Lost neighbors in my 12-man, so my wide receiver core is killed. Jacoby Ellick Diggs. Been trying to shop McBride, but since it's 12-man, 2 flex, no one is valuing him enough. Fair. I got offered to send McBride and CMC for Hampton, Tyreek, Kittle. I'm doing that 100%.
Yeah, do that. Give me Hampton, Kittle.
And here's the reason why I'm doing it, Nino. And you know, you didn't ask for deep dive or anything, but the reason I'm doing this trade is Hampton by himself
be the best player in that group.
Going to be able to match or at least somewhat match the production of CMC.
Well, rest of the season will shatter because CMC is not going to play the rest of the games.
Then when we look at what you're getting on the back end of that is Tyreek, Kittle, and Tet. For when Kittle comes back, he's going to assume the role of a tight end one again. We see the role that Tong has had. He caught a touchdown. He was being used because the wide receiver situation is a little iffy. Tyreek is a productive player. He got a lot of targets last week from Tua, and as long as Tua is healthy, this is a trade that if it got proposed to me, I would accept that. CMC is
I would sprint and do that.
I would sprint to do that too, because this means that I can take out Jacoby right now, because Jacoby is not a very trustworthy wide receiver at the moment. For our 4-game sample size, he's not doing enough that makes me want to put him in all the time at the flex position. He's had plenty of opportunities to prove otherwise.
You can do that. So, and you might have to do an initial waiver cut because you're picking up 2 extra guys. What I would do, assuming you're able to push it through immediately, I would immediately package Tet and get Jacoby and upgrade in another 2-for-1 because you're going to have so much extra roster space. You don't need.
I was just saying Jacoby then becomes a flex option at worst, and you don't have to force him into your lineup as you would do with this lineup right now.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it's even better to get him and Tet combined to get a better asset.
And I'm doing it too because I love the targets for both Tet and Tyreek, and when Kittle comes back.
Yeah.
Nano, Jacobs and K9 for Taylor. I have Judkins, Hampton, Charbonnet, Benson as well. I like this idea here. So the idea here is the idea here is you're pairing up two backs that you're most likely not going to always start in K9, and you're picking them up and you're moving them into a back that is a forever start. So the cost to move you from Jacobs to JT is going to cost you K9 because even though JT didn't have a touchdown this week, he did get a touchdown called back due to holding from Adonai Mitchell. So when I look at this,
Adonai Mitchell had a rough game.
When I look at this grouping of players, would that work? Yes. Do I think it's a lot? Yes. Maybe I'd try instead of K9, maybe I'd try Benson or Sharps in there. But I do like
I do it exactly the way he has it written.
I do like the idea of this trade a lot. I do like Jacobs. He's always going to have touchdown equity in this offense, and they're going to prove that they're going to be able to move the ball downfield. So
unless we're playing Cleveland.
So honestly, for me, I think it should Jacobs into JT would be fair enough. You're giving him the juice of K9. I think it's
he's also giving the juice of K9. Now he's allowed to root for K9 to get hurt, so Charbonnet becomes a god. Everything about this man, I would do that trade. Oh, whoa, Bob got cut off. Don't know what happened to him there. So Alejandro, I want to add Marks and see if it gets in. No, I get it. And the fact that you picked up Marks Alejandro as a waiver wire dude makes it even an easier play to do. You don't really have anything at risk. You don't really have anything there. It's a waiver pickup. And to do a 2-for-1, you'll pick up another waiver wire guy there. Brashard Smith got some play there in Kansas City. He could be the guy next week. I'm not necessarily sure that he's the guy yet, but that would be the direction in which I would look at there. So Alejandro, with it being Mbuka, JSN, Marvin Harrison, Eleanor, and you traded Parasol for Henderson, your running backs are Bijan and Bucky in a start 2 receiver league. Yeah, going back to your trade before, I am absolutely going to move Marvin Harrison from Arizona, a team that should probably be considered as offensively challenged as long as Kyler Murray's under center, for CeeDee Lamb, who is in Detroit and never going to have a defense behind them. So they're always going to have to be scoring. The Dallas offense shown they can do that. Of the ones you were able to buy, Lamb is the most affordable because of his injury. It's also, in my opinion, the least risky compared to Chase because the quarterback is elite or close to elite. So, yeah, if I were you, Alejandro, you don't really need Marks. Give me JSN and Marks. Go get CeeDee Lamb and then start CD and Mbuka. Go win yourself a championship with JSN in the flex. To me, that is a no doubt how I would love to do it. We appreciate the appreciation, guys. Make sure you like it.
Hey, what's happening, Jesse? So, yes, we have a 4-week sample size now. We have a game in which Trevion Henderson saved himself with a touchdown. Okay. Mm-hmm. And you guys saw me last week and said, I'm flag planting him right now. And this is the game that he's going to have to perform in against one of the league's worst run defenses in order to make me want to start him on a week-to-week basis. Am I concerned about him as an athlete? No. Am I concerned about his usage? 1,000,000%. And here's why.
I'm more concerned today than I will be in November.
I think he's still worth having on your team, but in terms of a start on a week-to-week basis, I think he is very much relegated to potentially the second flex spot for most people. Here's the problem, Jesse, is we look at this game. They were on the field for 43 snaps. Drake May took 43 snaps,
which is not a lot.
Trevion Henderson was on the field for 15 of those. So less than 50%. Okay. What was encouraging about the 50%, less than 50% of those snaps, right, is that on the 15 snaps he was on the field, he got a look on 9 of them. Okay. So that, in a way, although it's a small sample size that we are utilizing here, 9 out of 15, while it's not great, shows me that
60%
still,
is good. Yeah,
they
to your
have
point,
a plan to use him. However, the fact that Ramondre Stevenson fumbled the ball 2 times last week and Gibson fumbled the ball 1 time last week as well, and they still got the majority of the work, particularly Ramondre Stevenson, that is where my concern is. Because you look at the overall snap shares for all of these players, and it's so variable on a week-to-week basis. Okay?
That's always been a Patriot thing, and Vrabel's stepping right into that.
When I see that, right, and I see that there, and it was a blowout. It was a blowout, essentially. And they did not even want to give Trevion more work. That's the concern for me, is that you would think that either you would want to see your rookie that you drafted pretty highly, you would want to see him working and seeing how he could overcome these defenses in a game that's, you don't have to worry about penalties. You don't have to worry about that. You just got to let him play. And they didn't do that. And that's where my concern is. Will I be concerned in November? Probably not. But right now, that's a concern.
Let me throw the counter proposal to this, because I think that this will connect some of the dots, and it goes back to why I'm not concerned in November. What if, in Vrabel's head, he actually sees Henderson as his long-term solution? If that were the case, you would not play him during a blowout. You would preserve him and make sure he doesn't hit that rookie wall. To me, Henderson in New England is giving all the signs of a coach trying to preserve you for what he believes could be a playoff push. Now, do I think New England's making the playoffs? I think they're a border team. But for your fantasy playoffs, that's when Henderson's going to be on fire. Henderson's a buy low guy for me right now, guys. I like him. He's
going to continue to be a buy low for me, but maybe not a start at this point in time. But what I will say is that Ramondre Stevenson signed a 4-year, $36 million extension back in June 2024. Okay. So I have to question if a trade or something were to come up along the lines and they were to get a good amount of value for Ramondre. This is just speaking in ifs, but if they were able to do something like that, would they go out and clear room for him? Would they trade Gibson? Probably not, because he's a little bit cheaper. My question is, would they trade him? And right now, I think that Henderson's role is very clear. What we've seen it over the last 4 weeks. It's a very clear role, and it is purely supplemental. And anything that you get from Trevion right now, he is like a super handcuff right now in my mind, where, is he worth starting? Yeah, some weeks he is. He's definitely worth starting, but then other weeks he's not going to be. So is he RB2 material right now? Probably not. Is he flex worthy? Probably, because he has that Ken Walker-like explosiveness that he could do a lot with a little bit. Has he?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even getting down to speculation road of real-life trades of Ramondre. I just want to buy and hold Henderson.
Yeah. Jonathan, sucks that you left Pickens on the bench. He had a great game. Thoughts on Wandale after Neighbors? Should I wait a week for a sell high moment or see what I can get now? I think I wait. I think that I see what I can. If I look at Wandale is one of those guys who, looking at Jackson Dart, who could definitely elevate what he has already done in the past. So he's been a PPR merchant, low ADOT guy in the past, but that has changed a little bit this year. Last week, on the games where they ran, like when Neighbors went down, right? Wandale has 74 snaps in that game. Okay. Ran around on 30 of them, got targeted 5 times. You could see that changing in the upcoming week. You can also see those numbers for Neighbors going to Darius Slayton and players like that. I do think that you're going to see a slight usage uptick from Wandale. And when he gets another 30-point, 20-point game or 17-point game, then I probably sell him, because I don't believe that is going to be the true level of his production over the course of the season. So I'm waiting, because right now you aren't going to get that much. You can maybe say, oh, look what he did against Dallas, but you can say that about a lot of guys. So, I think I'd hold him. I maybe even would think about starting him with Jackson Dart and seeing how that plays out. Jonathan, Superflex League, I have Penix and Rodgers on a bye next week. Should I drop Rodgers for Sam Darnold or Bryce Young? I'd drop him for Sam Darnold probably. Yeah. Looking at Bryce Young, Bryce Young is still doing things that you would hope that a quarterback would have gotten out of their system so far.
Looks a lot like Kyler Murray with less talent.
And Sam Darnold is proving worthy enough to do enough. However, when it comes from a fantasy football perspective, he's not really the best option at the quarterback position right now if you want like a big ceiling game, right? The differences between the two of them in terms of their big ceiling games, where you get the extra bonuses, is that Bryce Young is going to rush for touchdowns and Sam Darnold isn't. So if that is something that's a considering factor for you, and you're looking for not a safe floor, but you are looking for a little bit more upside, the answer is Bryce Young. But if you're looking for a safer floor out of your quarterback, you could probably put Darnold down for 1 to 2 touchdowns this week, maybe even a little bit more. Carolina's facing off against Miami this upcoming week, Joe. So, I mean, it's a good spot.
I don't think you can invest in Bryce Young. I don't
get that. Listen, I get what you're saying, but also Sam Darnold's facing against Tampa, and that's a good enough matchup too. So I'm just saying, Sam Darnold doesn't give you the rushing upside. Bryce Young does. So Bryce Young can rescue a poor passing performance with a rushing touchdown. Sam Darnold cannot. So Sam Darnold has a poor performance passing. Seattle will most likely lose, and you will see maybe 9 to 10 points. If Bryce Young has a poor performance, he might rescue that with a couple of rushing yards.
I'm looking at this rest of the season. Who's more likely to give you more points for the season? It's Sam Darnold, without doubt. So this might be a permanent switch.
Yeah, you're going to drop one of them after week 5 too. Pick up another guy.
So it might not even ever be a real thing.
So needing a defense to stream in week 5. Are the Browns fine? I saw a question about the Browns last week. And we said, yeah, the Browns over the Niners was probably a good enough play. And out of those 2 options, I mean, it kind of was in a way.
I got a giant concern I need to put at you here. The Browns have been doing really good at shutting down offenses. But there's one thing the statistics are not going to truly correctly analyze in this matchup. And that is this. The flight to London being 6 hours behind Cleveland is massive. Minnesota is already there. They're already acclimated. And by the time kickoff is. So that is a major factor. And one of the real reasons I think the Steelers won on Sunday is because they got to Ireland 2 days earlier. I think it was a massive factor in that game. So I don't want to take the Browns, even though on paper it looks phenomenal. I don't want to touch it. I wouldn't mind looking at a defense such as Seattle. Again, I go off of points against as who I want to target. So I don't mind Seattle looking there as far as one of the points against teams we can look at. The one I like the most, though, is the Colts, and you should be able to stream them pretty easy.
The 2 defenses that I'm looking at this week, one of them is probably owned, most definitely owned, is Houston. Yeah. Especially if they play Cooper Rush. The other one that I'm looking at is either one of these, but most likely New York over New Orleans. I think that there's a reasonable expectation that one of those defenses will get a turnover or 2. So banking on one of those quarterbacks to get a turnover, I think, is a smart thing. I think they're both capable of getting.
You don't want to go against my boy, the rattling gun.
So if you're not impacted by like total points scored and you're just looking for potential for turnovers, I think that's a good enough spot. And
the Giants aren't a bad call there because they held those Chargers in check in a game that
I like
the
them
Chargers
this week
were going to cover, and it did not happen.
And Nick, this is a sell for me on Genty. So if I own Genty right now, this is the game I'm going to use to sell because the Bears were in shambles. The Bears defense again was not very good.
Were like it's over. And the Bears are in shambles.
And the Raiders took advantage of that because they're not able to generate a pass rush. The Bears, they were able to the Raiders defense was able to get a little bit more push and give Genty space. This is the game where you saw what Genty's true potential is as a professional athlete.
It looks
because you saw him do so much because the other defense didn't get a push. So if you have Ashton Genty, what I would be looking at on a weekly basis, of course you're going to start him, but what I'd be looking at in terms of what I would expect for his total points is I'd be looking at defenses that aren't able to get push on the offensive line. And even though the Raiders are bad, they're not historically bad. Cincinnati is. So you look at it and you say, okay,
Indy's going to get him.
So you look at it and you say, is it going to be a good week? This
then they
week,
play Baltimore.
Probably not. The next week, maybe, right? So there are going to be opportunities for you to sell.
Vegas is at Baltimore, and then Vegas is at Kansas City.
There are going to be opportunities for you to sell, but now is probably your best time to use this performance and maybe get into a running back that you are more comfortable owning. So if you are out there with Genty, maybe you like JT a little bit more. Sell Genty in a piece, and maybe you can get yourself into JT because people are going to look at the stat line and say, oh, you didn't get a touchdown this week. Oh, what's going to happen? Jesse, let's get to this deep dive in a minute.
Baby.
Let's answer a couple of these questions first, okay? Mando, how are we feeling with DK?
All right, we'll do both DDs.
Yeah. I was about to see what I could get for him, but he went off in Ireland. So here's the thing. He had 5 receptions in that game. When you're looking at games where he could go off, you say to yourself, okay, what went right there? Well, what went right was the fact that, he was in the right place at the right time to run 50 yards downfield. Okay. And that's something that I don't want to discount, but he also ran 42 snaps, ran a route on 22 of those snaps. So you look at it and you say, okay, well, he's in the offense a lot, but he only got 5 targets that whole game. After that first half, he wasn't targeted again.
They ran the ball in the second half.
Which is interesting, where you have a team like the Steelers who are down to their second running back going into the season. People thought he was going to be a third running back, and he ended up playing really, really well. So you are going to have some up and down weeks in DK. I think DK is a hold, although if you do want to sell him with that great performance, you could probably get more than what he's actually worth right now. But I don't think on a week-to-week basis that DK is going to hit you with a super bad game. I think his floor is somewhere in that 10-point range. And you saw what his ceiling is this game. That's his ceiling. And he did that in Seattle a lot.
See, Mando, I can see where you're saying, Bob, that's his ceiling. What was a $130, a touchdown of 5 catches. But one of the things that was very, very exciting for me watching DK Metcalf from a Steelers perspective was that Rodgers was using him for the setup throws. He'd get a lot of back shoulders when they were using him. And the other reason I wouldn't move him yet, there are 2 reasons. First is the number 2 receiver from the Steelers went out and was in the hospital in Ireland, did not return with the team. So there's even a greater need to rely upon DK. That was obviously Austin. The number 2 reason is they have Cincinnati twice in the next 4 games. So if there's any defense that you're going to torch through the air, it's the Cincinnati Bengals.
You can also
so if you're willing to wait 8 weeks, you might be able to get a massive haul in return because you're also going to eat the bye. It just makes him a much more valuable asset for you after that second game against Cincinnati Bengals.
So added on to what I just said, right, is that everything you said, Joe's absolutely right about DK Metcalf. And for some people, DK will be a buy. But what I want you to look at is that you are probably not going to get over 7 targets a game with DK, even with Calvin Austin out. Aaron Rodgers
Mhm.
can hyper target guys, but it doesn't seem like DK is the guy that he's hyper targeting. And when you go and look at the stats, right? DK is one of those players that right now is buoyed and brought up by his touchdown production. His yardage production is basically met after this game, right? So you look at this game, 120 some yards. One of the games he had 80, and then 2 games under 40 yards. So what I'm
one of those
looking
games
at
he had
here,
sauce, so I don't even know if we count that.
you count it. I mean, it's there. There have been players that have gone against Sauce and have had good games. The game against Sauce was the 83-yard game. So I'm counting that because that is one of the
I thought
better
it was
games.
his 40. My bad.
So you look at it and you say, against Seattle and New England, teams that he should have done better with, he had 30 yards, 32 yards, and 20 yards. So is he going to be a feature of this offense? Yes. Is he going to be a staple of this offense? Yes. If you want to go out and sell him, I think this is your time where you're going to get a classic high DK.
I actually think you get more next week. You selling someone in their bye week is always a downgrade.
Yeah, and considering that, you can wait until week 6. If the offer wasn't good enough for you, you could wait and play him week 6. He's not going to hurt you week 6. That's what I'm saying is he's one of those players that isn't going to hurt you, but his upside is hard to find sometimes.
Yeah, you just got to accept he's a floor player.
Lonely, but it's a high floor. Lonely, 12-team PPR, wide receiver heavy with Chase, JSN, London, Flowers, Waddle. Running backs are Kyron, Scadaboo, Hendo, Rashad White, Algier, Hunter Henry, and Ingram. Trade Flowers, Hunter Henry, and Henderson for Breece and Tyler Warren. I would consider that.
I don't know.
Here's why I would consider that. I would see what's going on in this week's game because that's Hunter Henry, the tight end, not Derrick Henry.
No, I know that. I just think I like Flowers a lot more than you, and I don't like Breece at all.
I think that Breece is a player for me that if you're worried about your running backs, it kind of in a way makes you feel more stabilized. Doesn't necessarily stabilize you, but it makes you feel more stabilized. I think this is a lot to give up. And this is why I said I'd consider it. I love Tyler Warren going forward. I also like Breece going forward. And Henderson right now, with the way your lineup is probably not cracking your flex position at all. And Flowers at this moment is a decision and a toss-up between Flowers and Waddle, most likely. With the news that we got that Bucky Irving is getting an MRI today, a lot of players are getting an MRI today, the coach said. So we'll see how that plays out. But when I look at this and I say, Flowers, whichever way you write it down here, Flowers, Henry, and Hendo, you're buying that big performance from Hunter Henry from 2 weeks ago. You're selling that, and you're selling the extra touchdown that he got this week. He's one of those players, right, that we talked about last week, that if you have him, you're going to play him. And if you don't, and if you want to trade him, he's tradable. You look at him, he's took the majority of the snaps. He ran a route on 16 routes run, and he only got 2 targets this game, whereas last week he was one of the highest target earners on the team. So he is going to have a back and forth thing. Tyler Warren already has cemented himself, no matter what, that he is the de facto player there. Now, do I like Hunter Henry? Yes. Do I like Tyler Warren? Yes. So this comes down to me then, Lonely, of Flowers and Hendo. And I think that the variability between Flowers and Henderson, you could have a 30-point wide receiver and a 15-point running back there versus a Breece whose ceiling is probably only going to be about 20, 22 points on a weekly basis. So I think you have to say, do I want the decision of, am I going to start Henderson or not? Or do I just want to start Breece Hall and know that when Tracy comes back, that I'm going to play my flex as Scadaboo or something like that? I think it's a fair enough trade. Would I try to pare it down and try to do like something different? Maybe, but I think it's a fair enough trade.
So Lonely, I'm making the assumption here, the only you really want Warren out of this. And if that's the goal, given the fact that you have Chase, JSN, and London, and you're not starting Flowers, or Flowers and Waddles are basically a push, I would do this differently. I would simplify it, do a 2-for-1 to get Warren. I would do Flowers and Ingram and see if that gets you Warren, because I bet it can.
It can't. I don't think it can. I mean,
But I definitely do not want to buy Brees. I guess that's the number one thing I'm trying to get across.
Right, let's
here.
clear up the rest of these quick hits, and then we'll get to the deep dives. Mando, how are we feeling about the Broncos defense versus the Eagles? I'd have to drop them to stream. I don't feel great about them. I think they're a defense that relies a lot on making turnovers, and right now they're just not doing enough of that.
And also, the Eagles are going to block a punt and take it to the house anyway, and that's going to count against your defense. So,
and the Eagles take care of the ball really well. So I am not on the Broncos this week, Mando. Not on them. Would I drop Godwin for Marks? I haven't.
No.
Would I drop Godwin? No. Do I want Marks? Yes.
Yeah. The answer is you don't cut Godwin.
Quincy, down by 23, playing against Jamar. I have Dobbins and T. Higgins down. I get the win. I think you have a good shot. Like I said to Joe, I think
he does. He's got Chase and 23 points he's got to overcome. How
this is a question. This is a question that you sent to me yesterday, Joe. You had your own question.
Mine is it's been updated because they had the defense. The Packers defense kept laying more and more points. So mine is I'm losing by 5 now, and they have Sutton. I have Jamar. I think I'm winning it.
Yeah. So I think that Dobbins to me projects really well tonight, which means that there's a good chance that he might fail. But Dobbins projecting to about 15 points, I think is fair.
Yeah,
and then
Higgins ain't outscoring Chase at all, let alone by 8.
I do think Higgins can outscore him, and here's why. When I look at this game, Quincy, I believe you also had Garrett Wilson or something like that in your lineup. I hope you also started Garrett Wilson there.
Oh, you would have brought him up.
Exactly. What?
He'd be listed here as one of the guys tonight.
But when I look at this, I think that Higgins being on the opposite side of Surtain will open up room if Jake Browning is able to throw the ball. Now, this all hinges on if Jake Browning's able to throw the ball. If Jake Browning is not able to throw the ball, that means Chase is not getting those looks either, right? So there's a lot of moving parts in this that all depend on Jake Browning. That I do think Dobbins gives you a 15-point play with possibility of clearing that 23 points by itself. And then it's upwards of Higgins versus Jamar. And that's kind of a coin flip for me right now.
That's not getting close to a coin flip for me.
So,
Adam, your question here is to trade Crosby and Worthy for Judkins and Marvin Harrison. I would do that outright for just Judkins. But if you give me Marv too, I'm taking that without a doubt.
I would, Adam, and it's not even close.
That's one that your league's gonna complain about.
Quincy, I just traded Benson and Terry for Mike Evans. My team is JD5, Field, CMC, HN, Henderson, Chase Brown, Mike Evans, Igbuka, Pearsall, Sutton, Garrett Wilson, Higgins, and Kraft. Did I cook? Quincy, I like it, man. And here's why I like it. Terry is injured. Mike Evans is injured. Benson is one of those players that, he didn't have a good week this week. We'll see where that takes him in the future. You went into a wide receiver on a passing offense who has touchdown equity, similar to Terry McLaurin. It only cost you the little benefit
insurance
of Benson. I do think Mike Evans is going to come back, and Pearsall with his injury happening as well. This is probably going to turn into a weekly start of Igbuka, Sutton, and Garrett Wilson. I think I like it. I think your team's in a really good spot.
Oh, no, here, let's dive into deep dives. We'll come back to Knicks as the first.
Yeah, we'll come back to that because I'm going to treat that like a deep dive.
I knew you would. All right, so Jesse is 1-3 with Knicks, Love, Nico, London, Buka, Rice, Mason, Judkins, Henderson, Brown, Godwin. What running backs would you guys trade for using one of these players? I want to make a trade for Hampton or Bijan. First off, and we saw that question, who should we be targeting? Hampton is a great selection, but he's also going to be an expensive selection. The one that I would recommend is cheaper you already have, which is Judkins. That being said, if you want to get Bijan, you'd have to sell your soul. So I don't think you're going to get that. But for Hampton, we might be able to make something happen here. I'm immediately going to say someone that Bob doesn't want to get rid of because I hate him and Bob loves him, which is I would always want to move London. Get rid of him. He is not a high enough floor, and he is so overrated. Use his name value. Get London out of this door. So if I'm getting rid of London, especially now that you have Goblin coming back from injury, makes it an even easier thing to do. Looking at your team build here with Minko, London, 2 Tampa ones, Rice after suspension, you have the ability to move 2 receivers today to get an elite one. You could go for the moon and do London and Minko for Bijan. I wouldn't. I would start the conversation with London for Hampton, and if you have to throw in Brown, you throw in Brown. That's how I would look at this trade. And I think you can get it for London and Brown to get into Hampton. You might be able to do it straight up.
So here's my view of this, Jesse, is that I would take a look after tonight's game and I would evaluate my quarterback situation. If I'm mistaken, please correct me. I don't think this is a super flex league, correct? So when I look at this and I say, everybody has a quarterback, so 12 quarterbacks. There are going to be people that are a little bit concerned about their quarterbacks right now that haven't performed to expectations. Love and Knicks are performing to expectations to a degree, and I would think about seeing what one of those owners might also need a quarterback, because that would be my extra juice. I do agree with Joe that you can move one of these wide receivers plus some pieces to get into Bijan or Hampton, but this is going to have to be like a 3-for-1 or a 3-for-2 with that second piece on the other side, just evening it out for the other person. And I think that right now, getting Hampton and Bijan, the way that London just had the best game that he's had all season,
that's why you're moving them.
That's what we want to see out of Drake London. And will we continue to see that? Is this an awakening for Michael Penix? We just talked about how Michael Penix and Geno Smith, they're like opposite sides of the same coin. 1 week they're bad, 1 week they're good. 1 week they're bad, 1 week they're good, depending on how these offenses are scheming and how these defenses are scheming against them. This week we caught fire in a bottle with Penix in London. And we're always asking ourselves, do we start London, Igbuka, Nico? I think right now Igbuka has cemented himself as, yes, you're starting Igbuka. Yes, you are starting Nico Collins. Yes, you probably are wanting to start London too. So when I look at your team and I say, we see it in the chat there playing, we'll get you on the comeback here. So when we look at this and I say, all right, well, from my running back room, I'd be starting Mason and Judkins, and the rest are kind of just fodder right now for how I'd want to get a trade done, because we don't really trust Chase Brown right now with the offensive line. Maybe we'll turn around this week. Maybe it won't. We'll see. But he's not going to get you much. But London being on a bye this week might not always get you what you want right now either. So for that reason, I think paying into Bijan is probably smarter right now if you can give the guy some starters that can actually start for him this week and make it a little bit more interesting. Because Hampton right now, with 2 great performances in this offense, you are going to have to pay more than you want to for Omarion Hampton. Okay, he's going to hold yourself over a fire, and he's going to ask for everything. And it's fair. He should. When I look at Bijan with the bye week this week, he might be like, oh, okay, well, let me look at this. So what would I think about doing? Well, I would think about pairing one of the running backs you usually start, Mason or Judkins, plus one of your higher profile wide receivers, and I would start the deal there. Then I would say, okay, I can add some pieces.
I think you get London for Hampton. You have
no, you can't. You
have Hampton way overvalued compared to what I do. I love Hampton. Don't get me wrong.
The thing is, Joe,
come off a high.
You look at the last 2 weeks of running back production in terms of fantasy points for PPR wide receivers. He is good. Top 4.
I get it.
Okay.
That's why I want him.
Am I valuing him high? Yes. But is that the fair value for him? Yes. You're not going to be able to slide London into Hampton because they both had great games. It's not a possibility. You're not going to be able to do that. You can start with that, but it's not going to happen, and you might get laughed out of the house. But starting with London and one of those running backs for Hampton or Bijan, I think at least
I think you get it done with London and Brown.
I think that gets the conversation going. And nobody wants Chase Brown right now.
Oh, I know, but the stack is still a 2-for-1.
So they're going to realize this garbage, and this is probably going to end up a deal. It's probably going to end up as a 3-2 deal or something like that. that ends up with some evening out on both sides. And that's why I said your juice is your quarterback. If the person, whatever one of those players doesn't have the better quarterback, I think that's where you get the advantage, because you can say, all right, I'll give you London and the quarterback instead of, I'll give you London and Henderson or Brown and the quarterback to get into this. Usually people don't like trading quarterbacks, but you have two really good ones. So I think that's where I land right there. And let's do Joshua's deep dive before we get to the questions from Quincy and Adam and Plain and Ricky and Mando down there. Josh, 2-2, 10-team PPR, May, BTJ, Tet, Igbuka, Hampton, Judkins, McBride, Golden. The bench is Tyler Warren, Henderson, Ridley, Hunter Henry, Woody, Gainwell, and JCM. IR is Lamb. What moves or trades do I make? So first things first, and I'm very disappointed to say this, but it's about time that we talk about Calvin Ridley. 4 weeks. 4 weeks is a good enough sample size for the season. We have 4 weeks of games where he's highly targeted, where he's on the field all the time. And then 3 weeks of that, then 1 week this week where he did not see the field as much, 27 snaps. Now, this game was a disaster. As Cam Ward said, we ass right now. We ass. Yeah, that's what he said. It's on Reddit, it's on Twitter. What do you want? What do you want to have? I think that Ridley is one of those guys that's going to be riding the bench for a significant time until Cam Ward develops into something that makes him want to be started. When I look at your team in general, the player that you've got to really consider right now, Josh, is BTJ. BTJ had a slow start to the season last year, stepped it up with Mac Jones. He's having a slow start to this year. He's getting the targets. He's not really doing anything with them. He didn't have the drops this week, but he's just not doing enough with what he has right now. And I think for me, I'm at the point where, you wanted to start Lamb and BTJ and Tet all year. We're thankful that Igbuka is doing what he's doing. But I really, really it's good to see that you also have Gainwell and JCM, because there's a lot. I really like having that depth of running back like you have there with 4 bench running backs that all are playing really well, or who can play really well. I think what you got to ask yourself here is, what do you want to get into? Because you can do a lot with the player capital that you have right now, with the performances that happened this past week.
You want to get Tet out of your starting lineup. Let's start with that.
I don't think Tet deserves to be out of your starting lineup, but I do think that you can upgrade Tet if the opportunity presents
itself. That's the upgrade I want to look at. So let's go from that perspective.
For example, Josh, you have the player capital right now to move into a guy like Bijan. You have the player capital right now to move into a guy like Justin Jefferson if you want to. You also have the player capital right now to begin a conversation about potentially moving into Puka. The conversation will probably stall because nobody wants to trade Puka, but you can at least begin a conversation if that is the player that, if that player who has Puka also took CMC. No, that's not on the table. But if they took Puka and Chase Brown, you have a conversation to have. So, I'm looking at, that's from the high end of options. If I'm looking at the middle set of players that maybe you want to think about getting into, you already have the best one in the middle set of Hampton and Judkins in terms of volume potential and upside.
I wouldn't mess with your running backs.
I would also just really kind of look at the schedule moving forward, right? And saying, all right, well, what wide receivers would make my team better? And I think that, looking at your team right now, Igbuka is one of the options that everybody's going to go after this week after that great game. I think that JSN is worth considering right now. And I also think that guys, again, like Cortland Sutton, that constantly are getting slept on. Guys like Tyreek Hill potentially. Roma Dunze, this is kind of your last point to buy Roma Dunze as well. I would start every one of those players that I just mentioned is probably worth a start over BTJ at this moment in time. So I think that's kind of where I'd start, Josh.
Yeah, but you're not going to get anything for BTJ right now.
No, I'm not saying move BTJ. I'm talking about getting into something more. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going a different direction. I'm First off, Tet's the guy I want to improve on. So Tet's included in the trade, whatever we do here, so we can upgrade it. You have, quite frankly, two players at a position you're never going to play both of them in Hunter Henry and Warren. So I'm going to include Hunter Henry in this too. And Gainwell just gave you an amazing week statistically that no one started. So I am going to pair Gainwell from the Steelers, Hunter Henry from the Pats, and Tet from Carolina. And I'm just going to basically plaster and see if I can get one of the underperforming or risky first-round receivers. I'm calling up Minka, or the Collins owner. He's been underperforming.
That won't even be close to getting Unico. That won't even be close to getting Unico.
It would start the conversation.
Yeah, it would start the conversation, though.
Hunter Henry has been putting up a lot of points. Gainwell gave you an explosion. And again, it's a volume trade. That's why you always want to take the one on a 3-for-1. But that's where I would start the conversation. Give me people who are way out kicking their coverage in Gainwell. Hunter Henry's a little bit better, but not totally out of the norm. And I don't believe Tet's going to be anything in Carolina. I think you're getting him on his peak too. So if you can do that, you're in a really good spot. So Bob, I'm going to have to bounce at the top of the hour. So let's do Santiago's deep dive as well. Yeah. And then we can
talk more about it, Josh, either later today or on Thursday as well. Jonathan here, 10-team, 3 wide receiver, PPR 4-0. Love to see quarterback Mahomes. Wide receivers are Amon-Ra, Tyreek, Sutton, Pickens, Wandale, and Iomanner. Running backs are Cook, Jacobs, Mason, Benson, Sharps. Tight ends are Pitts and Hawkinson. Any moves you think I should make? I don't think you should be doing anything right now. Yeah, I really like this team, Jonathan, and I can give you a couple of reasons why. You have a very safe floor at your running backs with very high ceiling, okay? For your top 2 running backs, they're on offenses that are moving the ball into the red zone where they excel at, okay? Mm-hmm. So I look at this and I say on a week-to-week basis. 4
starting running backs on your roster in a 12-man league.
When I look at your top 2 running backs, you have a safe floor on a week-to-week basis with really high upside. Then I see your bench and I see Mason, Benson, and Sharps. And I look at that and I say, okay, you have people these 3 guys can take over for one of those guys. You don't have to start them, but you can if you want to. Then I go to Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes had a great game this past week with 27 DK points. He is one of those quarterbacks that is going to be up and down as the season goes on. But what I know is the fact is their running game is atrocious. So in order for them to have to win games, he's going to have to pass the ball. So it is very likely from here on out that if the Chiefs are winning games, Patrick Mahomes is throwing for 2 to 3 touchdowns and over 250 yards. We know this is probably going to come to fruition. Then I look at your wide receiver situation, and there may be only a couple of things that you might want to tweak in there. But St. Brown is a target earner. Tyreek Hill's a target earner. Sutton's a target earner. Pickens with Lamb out is a target earner. Wandale is going to be a target earner, and Iomanner is going to be a target earner. So you're going to have some tough choices down there potentially at your flex from a week-to-week basis, or maybe your wide receiver 2 or 3, depending on how you want to order these players. But I think all of those wide receivers from St. Brown to Pickens are worth starts on a week-to-week basis. Mm-hmm. Then you look at Pitts and Hawkinson, and you kind of flip a coin based off of matchup every week on those 2 guys. If you wanted to, and I'm not saying to do it, but I'm saying it's as a suggestion.
I'm not sure why I'd be inclined to do that.
That if you like what Brock Bowers' potential is going forward.
No.
If you like it, you can pair up a couple of guys to try to get him. You could also pair up a couple of guys to try to go after Kittle.
Kittle's the one to go after, yeah, because you can get him on the cheap now.
You could do that. I don't think it's necessary with the team, but if you want to kind of pivot down your options in that flex position.
Yeah, I mean, that's where you're at now, Santiago, is you're at a spot where you do some 2-for-1 so you don't have to make decisions. And so right now you're making a decision between Sutton and Pickens.
And taking Pitts and Hawkinson.
Make one choice.
And taking Pitts and Hawkinson, if you move on from either Pitts or Hawkinson, you give yourself another roster spot to pick up a guy that's going to be potentially a stud going forward. I think Hawkinson and Pitts are right around like an even money for me on what they can do, with Pitts being having a little bit more upside, I guess, right now with the return of Addison. I really like where your team is at right now. And I don't think you need to do anything to it, Jonathan. But if I were to do anything to it, it would come in the tight end market. I'd trade a couple of those assets. Maybe you can move yourself into a Tyler Warren or something of that nature by moving a couple.
In theory, you could do Hawk and Sutton for Warren. That's not outlandish.
Would I want to necessarily do that? No, but you could.
No.
You could absolutely do something.
I would, if I were you, if you felt you had to, I would wait a week, let Wandale go nuts with a gajillion targets. Now that Neighbors is out, and then let combine Wandale with either Tyreek, Sutton, or Pickens and go get a significant upgrade.
Yeah, that's fair. Hopefully that helps, Jonathan. Nick, how would I feel if I kept Gentry the rest of the season? I don't think you'd feel very good. I don't think you'd feel very good. And like I said, this Bears team, it has an atrocious defense. So what I want you to look for, if you're thinking about keeping Gentry the rest of the season, is to look at how these other defenses have played running backs of his caliber, because although he caught passes this game, through the first 3 weeks, they didn't prove that was what he was going to do. So I would monitor that situation, because they look like a better team when Gentry's running the ball the way that he was running it, when they were giving him enough looks like that. So if I was keeping Gentry the rest of the season, I wouldn't feel great about it, because as we said during the best ball weeks, once you hit about week 8, week 9, then the schedule starts to get really hard for Ashton Gentry.
So bad.
And so you look at it and you say, okay, this is if he pings off another 25 point a game, you're going to be mad that you sold him. So that's why I kind of paired Gentry with another player to move into a guy that I'm super confident on. Your Bijan's, again, I'm going to say Bijan again. I'm going to say Hampton again. You can move Gentry into Hampton potentially. You can move Gentry into Bijan with a piece or two. I think that those conversations are worth having. The straight up trade Gentry for somebody else, though, you might be able to convince the Hampton owner if they like Gentry a little bit more, but that one's going to be a little bit tricky. Quincy, would I drop T. Higgins, Wandale Robinson, or Juwan Jennings? Juwan Jennings is hurt again. So if I have to drop anyone this week, considering that he's injured again, we don't know the severity of the injury, but considering that he's injured again, I would consider that. I would just check on that. Jesse, would I trade BTJ and DK for Judkins? I would definitely think about it, Jesse.
Maybe a little bit much for Judkins. I love Judkins, but that might be a little bit much.
I wouldn't personally want to trade Judkins for. I personally wouldn't want to give up BTJ and DK for Judkins, but I think it's fair enough with the way BTJ has been playing. Knowing your team, though, knowing what you have to work with here. You have Judkins sitting there, and you could get into BTJ. You don't need BTJ if that's the same team. It might not be the same team.
BTJ has potential of becoming more, right?
Yeah.
But I do not want to trade him and DK for Judkins. I hate DJ Moore too, Ricky.
DJ Moore is a disappointment right now, man. He was one of my guys early on in the offseason that I really, really liked. But it's proving that he's not getting those enough manufactured touches. A lot of those touches are going to Rome. Rome is proving that he can do a lot. He is the touchdown upside guy. DJ Moore is not. DJ Moore is a bench rider. I know last week on Thursday, for some people, I did say that I would be putting London on the bench. Hopefully you didn't listen. Hopefully London went in your starting lineups. But all of the reasons to believe London wasn't going to have a good game were there, right? And the same thing goes with a guy like DJ Moore, Joe. Is DJ Moore isn't doing enough right now. Even if the targets go up,
doesn't like him. There's no reason for you to like him.
Enough. He's still not doing enough.
So Adam, to answer your question, would I trade Gentry for Hampton?
Yep.
I absolutely want Hampton. I would do that in a second.
I would. Plain hamburgers here. Would you trade CMC for Tetton Gibbs in half PPR?
I would.
You would?
Yeah, I would take Gibbs out of that because I think
would.
CMC is about to get broken.
Yeah, playing. And Mando agrees with you. I would. CMC is looking good right now, but I think I take the 2 volume plays there with Gibbs and Tet. Mando, which 2 would you start full PPR week 5? So we're talking week 5 here. Jennings, Addison, or Sharps. Bye week and Lamb injury got me. Pittman is my wide receiver 1. He got 15 points in DK last week. So if that's your wide receiver 1, that's not really a problem for me right now because he's getting volume, he's getting production. I like that from him. Who would I start out of this grouping? I'd probably start Addison. Here's why. Joe will tell you the same thing, and he told you earlier on in the episode. The Vikings are already over there. They are acclimated to the time. They're acclimated to the environment. What I told you guys last week about teams starting off sluggish and then the games picking up as the game went on, that happened this week for Minnesota. They picked up the offense as the game went on.
They did.
That is going to start out from the head already to start the week. And I think knowing that Addison doesn't have an injury designation, caught a whole bunch of targets from Carson Wentz this past week, knowing that Sharps and Jennings are both, they have injury concerns, plus Sharps is in a timeshare, it's Addison full send for me, 100%. Tristan, should I target Jordan Addison or Tyreek Hill in a trade? I think both are worthy of targeting. Addison is very interesting to me. Like I just said about that Addison comment is there are going to be plenty of targets as long as Carson Wentz is the quarterback. Mm-hmm. That changes a little bit if JJ McCarthy is the quarterback. So I would keep my eye on it. Tyreek Hill is kind of interesting as well. As long as Tua stays healthy, he's going to be targeted.
Yeah, I think Tyreek's going to give you negative return on investment as
I think Jordan Addison will cost you a little bit less, knowing that Tyreek has a little bit more name value. But Jordan Addison is just.
I think Addison would be the way I'd rather go on that one.
My bad, getting ahead of myself. Thought it was week 5 Q&A on 10 web. I'm feeling good about Addison. I'm feeling real good about Addison.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with next week questions, man. We're totally good. And it wasn't just
he's talking about
Hunter Henry. It wasn't just Hunter Henry for me.
Scorpio. Is Scadaboo a good running back for the rest of the season, or is he going to drop in value once Tracy comes back? I think he's going to see a slight drop in value, but I think that he's going to continue to produce at a level that is flex worthy. When we look at how he's playing, the question is, and this is what we've talked about with Wumbo before too, Scorpio, is that
it all comes down to Dart.
It's
too hard to say.
His play style is a bit problematic for his future health. Dart is proving that he can also rush in a touchdown. Yeah. So I would keep my eye on Scadaboo. I do think that Scadaboo continues to be a good play the rest of the season.
See, I disagree with that.
Pearsall, Nick, this is an Ashton Genty style trade. Yes. Pearsall and Genty into Jonathan Taylor.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Now, I do like this one.
I would like Hampton more.
I would shoot for that one because when I look at Pearsall's production and Genty's production, Pearsall just got injured this week, so that production this week might go down or he might not play at all. Pearsall and Genty, you are selling 2 guys where their production could dip any point in time, but JT is a bona fide stud. And again, the only thing keeping JT out of bona fide stud territory is anything having to deal with injuries and stuff. And same goes for every player that we mentioned, guys, is that, injuries happen in the NFL, but when you have production like this is the type of trade that I would 100% get into right now. Pearsall and Genty for JT. Absolutely.
So Quincy, you're the last one I get to answer here today. Bob will leave you guys in great hands. So
we'll hit the road too. So
you're down by 49. You have Breece and Waddle, or they have Breece and Waddle. You have Shane Garrett. Wilson.
I think this one you pull out the win, Quincy.
Yeah. So basically it comes down to Chain and Breece. You probably get a slight win there. You should get an edge on Wilson. So basically, does Sutton and Fields together get you to about 42 points? It's going to be close. It's going to be real close.
I think Chain and Breece kind of even each other out. I think Garrett Wilson and Fields clear potentially that 49. And then Sutton versus Waddle. I think you have a really good shot. All right, guys. So we're ending the episode right now. If you have any questions before Thursday, please leave them on this video. We'll be joining you guys at 3:45 Thursday for a little bit of an extended show till about 5:30, 6 o'clock-ish in there. Good luck on your waivers this week, and we'll see you on Thursday, 3:45, Local Football Flavor. Thanks again for joining.
Like and subscribe. Make sure